and how we attract and inspire the very best people. Because my thesis is, in fact, I know this to be the case, in many of the largest firms in the UK, a lot of your best talent is disappearing. I want to look at why and how to turn that around. If you look at universities, if you look at the motivations of people in business schools, in the old days, let's say 10 years ago, people at London Business School or any of the other 7 business schools where I've taught on MBAs, they would say the reason they're doing the MBA is because they want to get onto the board as quickly as possible. Today, if you ask them why they're doing an MBA, they'll say, well, I want to be successful, but I want to have a life. I want choices. This is a really different generation, and it's happened despite the slowdown. If we look at the engagement of your teams, engagement is critical to success. Just look at this. This is a meta-survey of 10 million executives, and they asked every person 12 questions. And the result of this was an engagement score. And they found that this score predicted which people were more likely to take sick leave, which people were more likely to be high earners, which people were more likely to have great clients. And those in the top half of engagement score, 86% more likely to have better customer metrics, 70% more likely to stay with you, 70% more likely to be your highly productive team, 44% more likely to have the highest charge-out rates, and only a third of the people they polled had high engagement. It's interesting, actually, that one of the greatest predictor questions out of the 12 is one, very simple. Do you have a best friend at work? And if you have a best friend at work, it was highly predictive of a high engagement score. Well, why is that? It's someone that you identify with, you share values with, you do life with, who's fun to be with, is part of family. It's just good. It's a good experience. So let me look at some of the things which disengage. 30 to 40-year-olds, 90% of them in this country want to leave traditional business jobs. And I would suggest, I haven't got the official statistic, but I would say based on my informal surveys of solicitors, even junior partners, I would say a high percentage of the people that I'm talking to also want to leave traditional legal jobs. 60% of 25 to 35-year-olds feel unfulfilled in their careers. 90% say they're looking for a higher purpose at work, and 59% say they see no meaningful purpose whatsoever in going to work in the morning apart from earning a loaf of bread. Now, put your hands up if you think that in your firm, if I came to it, I might find similar results. Put your hands up. Put your hands up if you think, oh no, we live in a completely different world, Patrick. All of our people are engaged, they all feel fulfilled, they feel terribly purposeful, and they know they make a tremendous difference every day. Put your hands up if you're in that group. I think purpose is an issue. I know it's an issue. That's why the MBAs are giving different answers than they did. It was financial success, being recognized, and all the rest. Now it's something wider, because when you say they wanted to have a life as well, what do they mean by that? They don't just mean less hours, although that's part of it. See, leadership values help with the recruitment, certainly. 82% of people don't want to work for organizations if they object to the values, so they like organizations with values. They want to know what kind of values your firm has. They want to know whether your senior partner is autocratic or democratic in style. They want to know whether they will be honored as a junior partner, whether they will be respected. They want to know that they will be recognized, rewarded fairly. They want to know that they will be understood as whole people. I say they. This is a common issue. It's about life-life balance. You see, I don't like the word work-life balance, because the opposite of life is death, which implies that people think that work is death. So anybody who talks about work-life balance, you need to take your glasses off and listen carefully. Let's have a conversation about life-life balance, which is we're balancing different parts of our lives, and here we're getting close to one of these issues. See, balance is usually about people rather than playing golf, and in that particular respect, it's usually the women that are talking life-life balance more loudly than the men. But I have to say, increasingly, with men too, life-life balance is becoming important. Now here's an interesting thought. In medical school, well, up to 70% of all the people going into medical school in the UK are women now. I haven't got the statistic for those going in to read law. Do you know what the proportion is of people going in to read law? 64% are women. Now, how did I sort of guess that? Because the men are just nowhere. Men are being outgunned from GCSEs through to A-levels. They're being outgunned, outcompeted with at every level in our society from the academic point of view. So let's work with 64%. By the way, that's today. What about tomorrow? It's a trend. What we're seeing, therefore, is men exiting law as a profession. Hello? What we're seeing is a feminization of law. We're already seeing 2/3 of your best talent coming into the legal firms are women. Now put your hand up if most of your senior partners are women. Put your hands up if you don't have a woman who's a senior partner. See, this is a really serious issue. You might say, oh yeah, well the trouble is these women, they're not very serious, they're all very well, they peak early but disappoint later, which is why we don't promote them. So I beg your pardon? These are the brightest and the best people inside your firms. So I want to know where these women go. And how quickly do they leave? Why are they leaving? You see, when I look at boards of multinationals who are mainly men, I say, how is it that I know that your brightest marketers, your brightest finance people, your brightest legal talent coming into your organization, your brightest innovators, your brightest people, I know most of them are women. That's why you recruit them. But I know that there's a dearth of them in the upper levels of the organization. What that must mean is that many of you men sitting here are only here because the women who are the more competent than you were decided not to compete. So on your board, presumably there are at least 4 of you on the board who shouldn't be there. If your cohort of women had remained in the organization, they of course would be on the board instead of you. Does it matter? Yes, it does. Talent really matters. So part of it is a culture, it's a cultural issue, and I think that every one of our firms, every one of our organizations needs to start asking those who are exiting, say, okay, what is it that we have failed to understand about you? And I would suggest one of the things that will often come back is the issue of balance, or the issue of not being understood that actually there is more to life. There are young children, there are dependent parents, there are double careers. This is a very common one. See, my firm doesn't understand that there are 2 careers in my household. My husband is being relocated, and I have to make a choice. Now, no one, my firm has not had a discussion with us as a household, which is blooming madness. There's 2 of us in the household. There's no way one of us can be promoted without the other being involved, because each promotion is going to involve a relocation. So they need to talk to us together and have a joined-up view of our future as a household, what it is that we want, what we're excited about, what we're concerned about, what would induce us to stay in the firm, because actually us as a family in the firm, it's not just one. And increasingly, it's the guys who are talking this conversation as well. 12% of mothers want to work full-time only. But very few of them will tell you the truth. I can't tell you how many times a woman has come to me and said, I dare not tell my boss what I actually feel. So why is that? Well, because he'd mark me down straight away for the exit chamber. Or he would overlook me. I say, okay, so you're an economic slave. So I beg your pardon? Well, if you're afraid to leave or to be exited or to be overlooked, you are already becoming an economic slave. You need to have the conversation, because actually to do anything else is dishonest. But you need to state your terms. And the very fact that you had that conversation, I guarantee, will change something. Next week she comes thundering back. She says, hey, guess what? I say, yeah, I can guess. Yeah, you won't believe what's happened. Yeah, I believe it. What happened? She said, I had the conversation. Yep. And? It was amazing. Yeah. He went into shell shock and threw a tantrum, which I knew he would, when I threatened to leave. And I basically said, I am leaving. I will be out of here within 6 months. And then he asked me why, and I told him why. And then he threw another tantrum. And I was afraid he wasn't going to speak to me for a week. And then he said he'd think about it. I told him, I said, my aim is simple. I only want to work 145 hours a week. Which means I know in this firm I have to drop a day because, full-time is 190 hours a week. 4 days is 145 hours a week. I know how it works. So I said, I'd like to drop a day. I am dropping a day. Actually, I'm leaving because I don't think you can handle it. He came thundering back the following morning. He said, I need to see you in my office straight away. He said, don't you dare think about leaving this organization. I've had a ghastly night's sleep. I can't bear the thought of you going. And you're just the sort of, the very fact that you even, you're on your way out has made me realize that you're just the sort of person we've been sort of overlooking for a while. I absolutely need you. And what's more, I'm going to increase your rate. I think we should employ you on more than I've been paying you full time. And I'm happy to drop you to 3.5 days a week. You can work from home whenever you like. Now, does that sort you out? She stayed. But what a pity that the conversation had happened so late, because they very nearly lost her completely. So it's about part-time, job share, flexible start, finish time, shorter working weeks. It's about other stuff too. It's about understanding the minute-by-minute flexibility. Dads are in this situation as well. You see, if you think that something like in 45% of households now, the wife is earning more than the husband. So we've got husbands who are under big pressure in those households. It's their career secondary now, even if they work for you. So it's the husband actually who's going to have to do the childcare. It's the husband who's actually going to need to think, gosh, our childminder is sick, I've got one of our children sick and has been taken to hospital, and I've got another child who's just been sent home from school. I need some off, and I need it now. To have a situation where that is understood, it's actually absolutely part of the culture. You say, well, sorry, you're in real trouble with me. Why did you even come in this morning? I'm shocked and appalled that you came in this morning. You should have phoned me straight away. We've got contingencies in place. We'd have sorted it all out. You should have phoned me at 4 o'clock in the morning the moment you knew that you were taking the first child in by ambulance. Please don't do that to me again. Promise me you'll let me know early. But many firms don't have that kind of culture. Now, you might say that yours does, but that's not what I'm hearing from many of my friends. Finally, I want to say this. If you want to touch passion, passion goes beyond family and friends, but it's usually about relationships. It's certainly about causes. You will learn more about the people in your team and your firm by asking them one question as a team member over a glass of wine. You'll learn more in 3 minutes than you'll learn in 30 years. And the question is simply this. Tell me about the thing. I would couch it in a more subtle way, okay? Tell me about the things you do for nothing rather than the things you do because you're paid. So things that you don't do for your family, you don't do it for your friends, but you do it for nothing, for something or some cause somewhere. And it might be that, I don't know, you do the accounts for a Zimbabwean orphanage. It might be that you visit people in hospital. It might be that you help out at the Scouts you're a school governor. It might be that you help out in your local church, as I do. It might be that what you do is you clear the snow from outside your neighbour's house every winter because last year she broke her hip on the ice and you don't want that to happen again. It might be that you say, well, I'm too busy. I'm embarrassed to answer that question. I have outsourced it, though. I give a lot of money away instead. But next year I'll be back, or when I retire I'll be doing it. And I did it when I was, I worked for Oxfam for a year in my gap year, and I did volunteer work as a student. Actually, I'm interested to know that answer here. Put your hands up if in the last 2 years you've given time to something you felt was worthwhile and you didn't get paid a penny for it. Look at that. And every one of you has a story. And those stories will warm my heart, and some of those stories will be intensely personal. Imagine there's Jimmy here in the front seat. And I talk to him over coffee. And I say, hey, Jimmy, tell me about yourself. Your hand was up. What was that about? And he says, I climbed Kilimanjaro with a whole load of yobbos who got thrown out of school and excluded for all kinds of reasons. I took them to Kilimanjaro, we climbed a mountain, and we raised £10,000 for breast cancer. What am I thinking? There's two stories. There's a fascinating story about people who've been excluded, and I want to know, and now we'll find out that he was excluded when he was a child. That someone believed in him and coached him, brought him back from the brink even when he was in foster care. As a result, he went to university and became a lawyer. But he wanted to put something back. But there's another story. And for this one, I'm not going to ask a question because I can see it already. Because he's crying. He's not overtly crying, but he's crying inside. I can see it on his face. And then as I pause and I nod, I know it will come. Then he tells me the rest of his story. His wife died of breast cancer 18 months ago. 6 months before she died, they diagnosed that she had a very malignant, genetically programmed cancer, which meant that her daughters were also at risk. They have two beautiful daughters, 22 and 20, both of them not married, all of life before them, and both of them have the same gene, and they discovered that they had to respond to that, and both of them had their breasts removed. I tell you, I know more about him in 3 minutes than I will know in 30 years working with him in one of your offices. I know what he wants to be remembered for at his funeral. I know what the most important things are in his life. I know the passions he really has. And I now know some of the reasons that will keep him in the job. And you will find, as we get close to the stories of each of the people that you work with, each of them has passions. Each of them has particular issues or concerns, challenges, opportunities. They have trigger points, things which they find incredibly exciting about working for you, and some things they find incredibly annoying and frustrating. And as we come close to the people we look after, and we put our arms emotionally, metaphorically around them, as we hope that people put their arms around us, not physically around us, but just as human beings to embrace us, that say, well, I'm more than the legal advice that I give. That we'll discover new ways to motivate people, fresh ways to relate to each other as teams. We'll discover ways to help them to feel, to engage with us, that we understand who they are, we understand where they're coming from, we're willing to organize and reorganize however they wish to work, even if it's with a reduced number of clients or different kind of workload, to make it work for them. Because we're committed to them, they're committed to us, and the most important thing is that the right client has the most wonderful experience every single time, and what role can you play in helping to build that future? Now, when we have that, I promise you, we have a different kind of firm. If you connect with all the passions people have, they will follow you to the ends of the earth. They will seek your advice and promote your services to friends. And I promise you too, if it's true for your team members, it's true for your clients. Every one of them has a story. Every one of them has passions. And when you can connect with them as a human being, and when they can see a window into your own soul and discover the passions which you have, and discover the fire that's in your heart, then you will find that you have a trust, a level of trust with the client that will go far beyond anything you could ever have imagined, and will take you through and provide some kind of protection against some of these whirlwinds of other things which will otherwise take your business away. In fact, it's the greatest defense against many of the other things we've talked about, is building relationship, trust, and it's all based, as I said, ultimately on emotion.